My name is Rachel, and what I'm about to share isn't something I read in a book or saw in a movie. It happened to me with my two closest friends, Jake and Aaron. I used to think courage meant being a hero, someone with no fear, someone larger than life. That night in a broken down car, stranded on a dark highway, and trapped in a motel with strangers at the door, I learned the truth. Courage is born in fear, and it's shaped by the people you have beside you. It all started on a Thursday afternoon. Jake had shown up at my apartment with his usual grin, car keys twirling on his finger. Aaron followed behind, lugging a backpack and wearing that easygoing smile of his. They were like brothers to me. We'd known each other since college, bonded by long nights of study sessions, weekend hikes, and countless conversations about dreams that felt too big for our small lives. Jake was the adventurous one. If you looked up the word spontaneous in the dictionary, his face would be right there. He could turn a boring Tuesday into a road trip. Aaron was the opposite, steady, logical, always the planner. He balanced Jake's recklessness with his calm presence. And then there was me, somewhere between them, always the one to keep the peace when their personalities clashed. That day, Jake burst in with an idea. Let's drive. No maps, no plans. Just see where the road takes us. Aaron rolled his eyes. You mean wander until we get lost? Exactly, Jake said, his eyes sparkling. Isn't that the point? Normally, I would have been the voice of reason, but something about the way the late summer sun filtered through my window made me say yes. Maybe I needed an escape from the routines I'd been trapped in. Work, bills, deadlines. Maybe I just missed feeling alive. So we piled into Jake's old sedan, packed with snacks, a blanket, and way too much optimism. The first few hours were perfect. We blasted music, rolled down the windows, and let the wind tangle our hair. We stopped at a tiny diner where the waitress called everyone honey and served the best cherry pie I'd ever tasted. We laughed until our stomachs hurt, until it felt like the world couldn't touch us. But then the sun began to sink, and with it came trouble. The car started to cough. At first, Jake shrugged it off, saying it just needed gas. But then the engine sputtered again, louder this time. We were surrounded by hills and thick trees, with no signs of civilization in sight. When the car finally gave one last wheeze and rolled to a stop, silence fell. Aaron groaned. You seriously didn't get it checked before dragging us on this trip? Jake ran a hand through his messy hair. It was fine this morning, his voice trailed off. We tried our phones, but there was no signal. The highway was eerily quiet, and only the sound of crickets filled the air. For the first time that day, a knot of unease settled in my stomach. After what felt like an eternity, a pair of headlights appeared in the distance. A rusty pickup slowed to a crawl beside us. The driver leaned out, his face weathered, eyes sharp. He smelled faintly of tobacco even from a distance. Car trouble, he rasped. Jake explained our situation. The man said he could tow us to a nearby motel. Something in his tone made my skin prickle, but we didn't have much choice. He hitched us up with practiced ease and drove slowly through the night until the flickering neon sign of a roadside motel appeared, vacancy. The motel looked like it had been frozen in time, with cracked pavement, a buzzing sign, and curtains that didn't quite close. Inside, the lobby was dim, the desk clerk uninterested. He barely looked at us as he slid over the key. When I glanced back at the driver, I caught the way he and the clerk exchanged a look. My stomach tightened, but again, what could we do? Our room was small and stale, with 2 creaky beds and peeling wallpaper. We tried to laugh it off, but the tension was already there. Then came the knock. Jake, always too trusting, opened the door without hesitation. 2 men stood there. They didn't smile. They didn't introduce themselves. They simply stepped inside, uninvited. Their eyes darted around the room, then settled on us. Aaron tensed. Can we help you? One of them smirked. Heard you folks needed some company. Manager said you were new here. Every nerve in my body screamed danger. They weren't here to be helpful. They weren't here for small talk. This was something else. I saw Jake and Aaron exchange a glance, both realizing the same thing. We were cornered. I don't know what came over me, but I heard myself say, clear and firm, only if you take turns. The words hung in the air. The men froze, confused. They thought I was agreeing to something. They didn't realize I was giving instructions to my friends. Jake understood instantly. He moved forward, planting himself between me and the men, his posture tall and unflinching. Aaron quietly dragged the room's flimsy chair and wedged it against the door, his expression hard. The men's smirks faded. They weren't expecting resistance. What followed was a tense standoff. No one moved. No one blinked. My heart hammered in my chest, but I refused to let it show. Courage, I realized, isn't the absence of fear. It's deciding not to let fear control you. Finally, with muttered curses, the men backed out. The door clicked shut, and Aaron slammed the bolt into place. We sat in silence, the weight of what almost happened pressing down on us. My hand shook, but I forced myself to breathe. But it wasn't over. Outside, we heard footsteps, voices. They lingered in the hallway, waiting, testing us. "We'll take turns staying awake," I whispered. "One guards while the others rest. We can't let them catch us off guard." So that's what we did. Jake sat first, gripping the broken lamp base like a weapon. Aaron took the second shift, clutching a piece of metal he'd pried loose from the bathroom. When it was my turn, I sat in that chair, staring at the door, listening to the creaks and murmurs outside. Hours dragged. Every shadow seemed alive. Every sound made my pulse race. But we stayed strong. We didn't let them in. When dawn finally broke, sunlight streaming through the thin curtains, it felt like salvation. We packed quickly, checked out without a word, and refused to look back. By some stroke of luck, an older couple stopped on the road and offered us a ride into town. With their kindness, we found a mechanic, fixed the car, and continued our journey. But something fundamental had shifted in us. That night in the motel wasn't about fear. It was about what we discovered in ourselves. Jake, reckless as he was, proved he could be a shield. Aaron, the steady planner, showed he could act with fierce determination. And me, I found a voice I didn't know I had. Only if you take turns became more than words. It became a symbol of how we survived, how we stood together when everything tried to break us. To this day, whenever life corners me, I think of that night. I think of the three of us in that motel, facing down fear with nothing but our courage and each other. And I remember that courage isn't loud or showy. Sometimes it's just a steady voice, a locked door, and a promise that you won't let the darkness win. Because courage doesn't mean being fearless. It means being scared out of your mind and standing tall anyway. And that is the true story of how the three of us survived one unforgettable night in a motel, and how I learned the real meaning of courage.